Welcome and thanks for joining us on the Crexi Podcast, an insider's look at all things commercial real estate. Each week, we sit down with CRE experts to uncover trends, insights, and strategies shaping the industry today. I'm Shanti Ryle, Director of Content Marketing here at Crexi, and today we are very excited to sit down with Joe Serafin. Joe, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Shanti?
I'm doing very well. It's
Good.
the almost middle of December. Somehow we're at the end of the year. We made it.
We made it. It flies by.
It
Always
really
does.
does. It
Yeah.
really does. I'm very excited about our conversation today. But before we get into the fun part, I'd love to introduce you to our guests.
Great. Thank you.
Perfect. So Joe Serafin is the principal broker and owner of Serafin Real Estate, which is a top-selling commercial brokerage based in Loudoun County. Is that right? Loudoun?
Loudoun County.
Loudoun.
Yeah.
It's the New England word, say.
Right.
I'm a California girl.
Yeah.
Loudoun County, Virginia. Over nearly 2 decades, Joe has closed over $1 billion in commercial real estate transactions, shaping the market across Loudoun, Western Fairfax, and Northern Prince William counties. Serafin Real Estate specializes in the sale of commercial buildings with a geographic focus on Northern Virginia, representing sellers, investors, and owner-users. Under Joe's leadership, Serafin Real Estate has been named Best of Loudoun Commercial Real Estate Company for 3 years now, 2022 to 2025, and was featured in the influential Today magazine for innovation and market leadership. Joe's also a keynote speaker for the Marima annual conference, where he shares insights on technology, market trends, and brokerage strategy. How weird. That's a lot of what we'll be talking about today.
Great.
Good, you're prepared.
That's right.
His commentary has appeared in WTOP, the Washington Business Journal, and London Times Mirror's Ask the Expert series. Virginia Tech graduate and board member of Marima, Joe remains active in local chambers and associations, and outside of the office, he enjoys time with his family, refining his golf game, and speaking on the future of commercial real estate. Woo!
Thank you.
How's all
Quite
that
the
sound
intro.
getting read back?
Yeah, actually, yeah, great. Really good. Too much,
Yeah.
but I love it.
You should be
Yeah,
proud
I
of your
love it.
accomplishments.
Love it. Thank you. Thanks for that great intro.
Yeah, of course. Well, I know I just went through your bio, but I would love to hear more so in your own words, because that's the fun part. How you got into commercial real estate, what your career path has been thus far, and lessons learned along the way. So, first off, how did you find yourself in this industry?
Well, it was somewhat intentional and somewhat of a just happy coincidence. I graduated from Virginia Tech in 2001, and at that time, I was looking to travel. I wanted to get into an industry that I could travel, so I got into the hospitality industry and started working for an 800-room hotel in Washington, D.C. And at that time, that was May of 2001, September 11th hit 2001, and we went from 100% occupancy to 3%. And I realized that, okay, my head was on the chopping block at that point. So a lot of us were laid off indefinitely. I just graduated college. I was living at home with my parents and realized, this is not what I want to do. I need some money, some kind of quick. So I started bartending, actually. I've always been somewhat of a people person. So was doing that around here in Northern Virginia, where I'm born and raised. And I was thinking, if I'm doing this here, why am I putting up with 20, 30-degree weather? I'm getting down to Florida. Me and a couple friends moved down to South Beach, Miami, where I started bartending there as well. After about a year of that, I was thinking, this is not sustainable. I need to get into something else. I had always looked up to my dad, obviously, and my uncle, both here in Northern Virginia. And my uncle was an attorney, and they were well off and all of that. So I thought, okay, let me try law school. So I went to law school for 6 months, couldn't stand it. I was one of those. In law school, they tell you, look to your left, look to your right. They're not going to be here. Somebody's not going to be there. Well, I was that person to the left or right. Law school wasn't for me. Lo and behold, I found my uncle really found his success through commercial real estate. He would use his law degree to involve himself in the deals, and instead of taking an hourly fee or whatnot, he would actually trade his time for equity in some of these
Ah,
shopping centers. There was that. My dad
sure.
happened to be in the multifamily industry and was a developer around the Fairfax area. So I thought, okay, the bartending thing's done, and I need to really look at a career more. So I was licensed in 2005 with really the sole purpose of helping my dad out, find lots, find development opportunities, and things of that nature. And that was going great for a while. And then we saw the 2007, 2008 real estate recession. And he said, I'm done. It's time for retirement. I'm out of this. So I fell kind of backwards into a multifamily firm that was based out of the Alexandria and DC area. And it kind of just spiraled from there. We were representing large private equity firms. The Carlyle Group, is one of them, the Patriot Group, JBG. And that brought me to work a lot inside what the Beltway, so very dense areas. So Washington, D.C., Alexandria, Arlington, Silver Spring, Maryland. And we were doing fairly large multifamily projects. I happened to really get along with the guys from the Carlyle Group. And so
Mhm.
they wanted me to go to Florida, to Connecticut, to New Jersey. So at one point, I was licensed in 6 different states, mostly representing them, traveling up and down the East Coast.
Yeah.
So that's where it all kind of originated. I was with them for a while. I grew to vice president with the company. Um, and really was it was a broad geographic range that I was covering. I was spending maybe 4 days down in West Palm Beach, Florida, where they had a multifamily asset, flying up to Connecticut for a day, coming back to DC, and this is all before kids and the wife and all
I
of
was gonna
that.
say,
So
did
yeah,
you actually have a rental lease at the time, or were you just going from hotel to hotel?
I was actually staying. They would actually have a place for me in that multifamily building that was,
Oh,
so it wasn't
perfect.
too bad because so expenses were still kept at a low. I had a budget for all the travel and so forth,
Yeah.
that I was reimbursed on. But yeah, they were nice places. I didn't really get to enjoy them. I was working all the time, but at least if I looked out my window at, 9 o'clock at night, I could see, the ocean or wherever I was.
Mhm.
So
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, that a lot of travel, and I'm sure, there are some fun stories from that time. I won't ask for anything too crazy,
Those would be
but
stories that would need to be off film and off
yeah,
record,
we'll
especially the
turn the
ones from
recording
South
button off
Beach.
for
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm curious, in the early years of commercial real estate, what were some of the biggest things that you didn't know?
Mhm.
And what were some of the steepest learning curves that you had to climb to level up on your career path?
So, the getting to know or like the East Coast gave me kind of a very broad range, but there was never really a specialization in those in the overall marketplace, right? Like I was looking at everything from a 30,000 square foot view and trying to combine it. And really, when we dove deeper into the asset type or who we were marketing to, uh, at first it was always going to be kind of, okay, who's local, but we may be down in Florida marketing to the local Florida market where the main asset purchasers at that time were from New York, New Jersey, other areas up and down the East Coast. Zoning was a challenge. Getting to know the local zoning. How do you know the zoning in a jurisdiction of not only maybe, let's say, one state, but multiple states, 6 different states, knowing what the zoning, that's very complex. And at that time, we didn't, I know we'll get into it later, didn't have AI tools to help us with that sort of thing or anything like that. So that was tough. I'm going from one area, completely different market to another area, all within the same week.
Mm. Yeah, and, again, different regions will have different
Yeah.
municipal codes, different ways of doing things, different processes, different people you need to talk to about things. So how did you go about, since we didn't have AI then, how did you go about learning those things?
Well, starting to get hyper focused in those individual areas. So it was really understanding who is going to be the right buyer or tenant for a given area. What is going on with the demographic trend, the affluency in that area? Is the local market actually going to be able to support some of the things that we were doing from a development standpoint at that time? And really diving deep into analytical. Now, I will say, for example, the Carlisle Group had phenomenal analytics that they could help with that deep dive study and finding that maybe if we're in West Palm Beach, for example, maybe what we've been trying for the last 6 months, it's not working because we're so focused on just that local market right there. And let's fine tune our strategy to reach the prospects up north out of New York who are coming down here, still doing business down here, maybe spending 6 months out of the year, but running a business full time, something they could do remote from up there. Once we flip that switch to understand that market and understand that market actually maybe locally wasn't going to work, that's when we actually started to see momentum in a lot of those southern projects.
Yeah. And when about, just to paint a picture of the timeline, when about did you see that switch start to take more place?
That was around
Uh,
2011 and 2012.
that was my
Still,
suspicion.
yeah, we're still in like a different market at that time, recovery kind of market, but some areas were recovering faster than others. So,
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah. And I mean, the funny thing today is I feel like most buyers, probably for especially like larger properties, like these big multifamily 200 unit plus buildings, are national. Like, you have to widen your scope. And that's the fun thing about technology, is that it's just made that buyer pool and that selling pool so much bigger and interconnected. And yeah, I mean, I can only imagine, before starting to like really have these tools in your toolkit, having all the knowledge you needed in each of these markets to be able to bring a Miami property up to a New York potential buyer
right,
and
right.
juggle all these different things and messaging that you needed to between the parties.
Right. And, like I always thought, like, at that time, like everything was about price. When
Mm.
really it's, I learned pretty quickly that it's about like the certainty and the qualification of those particular buyers. It doesn't matter what the price is if that particular buyer is not actually going to be qualified for the asset. So at that time, I mean, early on, I was really learning like how to qualify as best as I could. And how do you qualify? Well, you get to know that I mean, the local market knowledge is always going to beat the national headlines. So understanding now, if that local market is not going to be able to support what we're doing, are there other markets that have interest in those areas and are willing to come down? So that was the steepest learning curve at that time. And then understanding not only maybe the market that I'm working in at the time, but those markets that had the buyers that would come down and their needs.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting. What is making them look elsewhere than their home
Exactly.
backyard?
Yep. Exactly.
Ah,
Yeah. A lot of
interesting.
snowbirds. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, from more of a career standpoint, at what point did you realize this is what you wanted to do for the long haul? Because not everyone is cut out for the brokerage world or commercial real estate world more broadly. So
Right.
what about it really hooked you and,
Yeah.
eventually led to you starting your own firm?
Right. I think that I've always been, I've always wanted to put in the work. I will try to outwork anybody and everybody that I can. And if there's not going to be a ceiling on the amount that I can earn, that's attractive to me. I did not like building, being capped. Basically, if you're on a salary position and it doesn't really matter how hard you work, you put in your 9 to 5. Well, if I'm putting my 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. work in, I want to be able to capsize on that as much as I possibly can. So that's why real estate, having a little bit in the family and so forth from before, putting in the work and actually seeing the results and the benefits from that work that was attractive to me. And what better way to do it by selling assets that, aren't $10, $20, $50, $100, but multi-million dollar assets where it's the same amount of work. Everybody only has 24 hours in a day, right? And if you're utilizing your time to sell these larger priced assets, you're going to reap more benefits from that because you're using your time effectively. So I saw that as I saw real estate as the way to do that. And I never really looked back. I didn't have really other alternatives. By that time, I had already been in the industry for about 7 or 8 years. Wasn't really interested in doing any sort of career change at that time. I love real estate. Real estate's a people business. It is, and it always will be. Even from my bartending days, I got into bartending because I like people. I like being around people, and I like getting to know them. I like building the relationships. And this was just another facet of real estate or commercial real estate where that benefited me, just not only from a financial standpoint, but just a mental standpoint too. I was able to talk to people naturally. I will say my clients today, some of them I've had for decades, they are friends. They are people. Right before this call, I'm sending out holiday cards. And we have a list that that I keep, and they're both family, but there's also friends, and those friends are also work colleagues, clients, and they're getting a holiday card sent with our family picture on there. So, play golf together. We've got drinks together, dinners, laughs. That is the attractive part of this business.
No, I love to hear that. Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with you. It's always going to be a people business. And I think if that's who your personality is and you're interested in the sector, you have a big leg up on those who are maybe a little more introverted or
Yeah, yeah.
you're gonna get forged in the fire through with some of these deals. So you gotta be able to connect with the people you're going through it with. I love to
Right.
hear that. You gotta know
Yeah.
what's right for you.
Right. And like the other thing that drew me to the commercial side of things was the numbers. Statistics. I'm big on numbers and analyzing the data and how that data makes sense to make certain strategic moves, investments, and things, and how we can guide our clients. So every day, from a standpoint of looking at the local market now today, it's understanding those statistics, what's causing what, how much is trading, where are we at during the current year. Right now, I could tell you there's 22,730 commercial properties between the 3 counties that we deal in, and 3.67% of those trade every year on average.
That's pretty
So
good.
we take that percentage and then we can analyze, okay, where are we forecasting? How is this year going to turn out? Are we up, down, and utilize that to really advise our clients best. Hey, maybe right now is not the best time to sell this, but let's see. This is what we're forecasting over the next 4 to 5 months. Let's talk again and see what happens then. So it's about giving the best advice to our clients.
Love that, using the numbers to
Yep.
paint the most realistic picture.
Yep.
I think people really underrate telling clients no or, advising them against what would be in your interest, which is to earn a commission,
Right.
obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, it goes back to the long game. I wanted to make a very elegant shift, which you said
Yeah.
the longer term strategy of it all. Tell us about your decision to start Serafin Real Estate.
Gotcha.
What was that moment like for you? Paint us a picture. And what did you do immediately after you made the decision?
Okay. Yep. So I had a lot of support from my wife when I was thinking about it. I was not traveling quite as much, but a lot of the projects were in the DC area or the other kind of major urban areas. And where we were living at the time that was still quite a bit of a commute. I know out in LA, you have the traffic. In DC, we have the traffic too. And at that time, kids are involved. We have 3 children now, and at the time there was 2. And I went to my previous firm, and said, hey, let's open up a branch in Loudoun County, and I'll even cover expenses. I have some good clientele that's focused out in that area. And that wasn't kind of, I don't know if it wasn't taken serious, but there really wasn't much interest in that. So that's when I decided, okay, it's time to do something else at this point. Now, right before I started Serafin Real Estate, and right after had those plans, I was approached by a longtime family friend who owned a commercial development company. They also were involved in co-working, and they also had a brokerage arm that they were looking to expand. So I thought, okay, well, let me try this. Let's try this partnership and see how this works. Fast forward a year later, it didn't. I am not one to really bring on partners or things of that nature. And no fault, we split it very amicably, but focus was elsewhere. I was focused on the brokerage. Yet another partner focused on the co-working, and another partner focused on the commercial development. That was their core business, generational. Don't blame them. But if I'm the one who's bringing in the brokerage business, however, it's split and there's multiple decisions being made on the brokerage, but that was not necessarily working. So It was at that moment, with the encouragement of my wife and actually some certain clients of mine, to start Serafin Real Estate. So I didn't go into it from ground zero, no clients or anything. There was a lot of support and backing where I knew we were going to make it. When Serafin Real Estate started, we brought in, or we had, roughly maybe 30 million of listings, 35 million that we could actually, that were immediately ready to switch over to us. So that's how it was born and started in February 2019.
Yeah. You got a good year before things went a little crazy.
Yep.
So what was that first year like? You mentioned you were bringing clients with you, which I do want to dog ear. I think it's so important to have an environment in which you can learn the ropes and have mentorship and build up the skills and build up your book of business. Some people are brave enough to do it on their own from the get-go, but it does help to have that foundation of education and experience. But can you describe what the first year was like? You're starting a new company. Not only are you doing the brokerage side, but you're also building a brand. You're setting up operations. You're setting up payroll. What was the first year like for your company? And what were some of the biggest challenges you had that you maybe didn't foresee or just was more than you expected, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, now we're focused in Loudoun County. In Loudoun County, I felt there's not a presence of the national commercial real estate firms in Loudoun. So there's 158 brokerages in Loudoun, and none of the large players. Everybody's a boutique or solo. So I did see an opportunity there. I also saw an opportunity in the marketing and we focus on the listing side. So we are representing sellers. And when I'm seeing marketing materials coming out on these $10, $20 million assets, and they're in black and white, or they look like they're hand drawn, and the residential realtor over there is marketing this $500,000 house, and it looks beautiful. There's aerials, there's drones, there's floor plans that are graphically designed. I'm like, okay, I want to have that, but utilize that for commercial. So that's exactly what we did. So we went out with our first listings that we had, and very strong visuals, just like how Crexi presents them on the website, right? Even though it was that I saw an opportunity to sell these properties. And I think if we were able to get those out and people started seeing, very strong, visual appealing website, marketing materials on these $10, $20 million assets, that's going to help us build our brand. So nobody was really envisioning that sort of platform, at least around here. So that was one of the biggest things that I saw with it. Now, at the time, I had one guy who was with a good friend of mine who was waiting for me to get the firm license, and he would come over, and it's somebody that I've known since 2015, one of my really, really close friends. And so I knew I could trust him. So, he was the first I really brought on. So we would bounce ideas off of each other. And then it just kind of very organically grew from there.
Yeah, finding the right people to fill in the holes you had.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so first year, we're doing things differently, using technology, using beautiful imagery, creating a brand. And then despite COVID happening a year later, you've built Serafin into one of the most successful firms in Loudoun County, very reputable and well-known in that DC, the Beltway you said, right?
Yeah,
I wanna make sure I'm using the right
DC
term.
metro area. Yep.
Yeah, so, how? How did you do that?
Yeah, gotcha. Well, you hear I read a lot of books. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I always think that there is, you don't need to reinvent the wheel, so to say. I mean, you listen to the greats like Bob Knakal, James Nelson, these guys, even Ryan Serafin, which I'm watching Owning Manhattan right now, just fantastic series on Netflix.
Did you catch the map room in there?
I did actually. Yeah. That was
I'm very excited.
we binge watched it last night. I saw the Knackle map room in there, and I've been fortunate to meet Bob, and so you have this icon out there who's done it. Started in '84, and so I looked at that. I looked at what he's done, and okay, I don't need to be licensed in 6 different states. I don't need to be everywhere. And I also don't need to be doing everything or saying yes to everything. This might be a good segue to our, a topic of specialization and what we do and all of that. So I saw the hyperlocal. I'm born and raised in this area in Northern Virginia. I know it. I just need to know it better now. So that's what we did. We literally drew a map. And these are the areas that we're going to concentrate on. They're Loudoun County, and I believe there are 5,839 commercial properties in Loudoun. That's a lot. Not a ton, but a lot. There's over 11,000 in Fairfax County, and there's 5,044 in Prince William County. Now that gives us over 22,000 properties. That's a lot to still cover off of a boutique firm. So he's narrowed the circle a little bit more, Loudoun County being our base. Let's concentrate Western Fairfax County and Northern Prince William County. That's our geographic base right now. Okay, still a lot of properties. Let's dive into a specialization. That specialization, one of them that we fell backwards into, I'll tell you, this is kind of a deal story right now. So one of the first deals that I ever did with my top client, I didn't know who he was. And it was a small land deal, but it was for road access to a larger property that he bought. Now, this access he could not get. I think the broker didn't like him or whatever it was, but he was basically getting ignored. One of my family members made an introduction to him, and we talked, and he's like, well, what do you think's going on here? I called the broker up, called him back. I'm like, yeah, they don't like you. I mean, it was point blank, they don't like you. He's like, well, how do we get this done? I'm like, okay, well, I have an idea. I'm going to buy this property, okay? I'm going to buy this property under an LLC, and you could fund it. And he funded it and basically transferred the LLC. He was able to gain access to this road. Now, I thought that was it. I'm done. Nice to meet you. And you wouldn't know this, but just by looking at him, but he's one of the, if not the largest landowner in Loudoun County, several hundreds of millions in his portfolio. And a lot of them were childcare centers that he built, 15 to 20 or whatever. And he's like, I really liked our working relationship. I've got this. They're all childcare assets. You want to help me sell them? And we're talking, a substantial portfolio. Well, of course, I'd like to help you sell them. So now we're invested in this childcare market. Got to learn it quick. And this was right when the firm was born, right in that he was one of those that came over. And one of our first transactions with SRE was the sell of a childcare portfolio of triple net properties that he had depreciated the tax on already. So he's looking for another 1031. The buyer happened to be a 1031 investor for close to 23.9 million. So that gave us a good leg. And now, looking around, now we had a lot of calls on that from really all over the country. Hey, okay, this is a stable asset, triple net, 15 plus years left on the lease with childcare tenants, credit tenant. So we have that in our database. So the word kind of got out. Oh, wow, you sold this for really good cap rates. I've got a vacant childcare center, and there's another client. I'm moving to out of the country. Can you help me sell this? Vacant, just built. And now we could put a sign on a very busy highway with the new logo, with the firm, contact information, a lot of exposure. And we ended up selling that one for the highest price per square foot for any owner-user childcare facility in the history of Loudoun County.
Wow.
Well, now we have a success story. We have a few success stories that we can use now. And then it just spiraled. So going back to your question, how do we, it's the hyperlocal being very in tune with the local market, and then a hyper product specialization that we have, and that just expands. So there are, I think today, 730 early education commercial properties between the three counties that we deal in, and a little over 2% of those sell off every year. So that's about 16 properties, and we happen to have about 80% of that business. So that equates to close to 50 million, just under 48 million on average per year. That helps, that pays the bills, and it allows us to get into other niche specializations. So
yeah. Wow. Oof. First of all, what a story. So thank you for sharing.
Sure.
But I love that it started with just a good turn. Like you didn't have to go the extra mile, form an LLC and go through the acquisition process on behalf of this guy, but you chose to. And yeah, it just set up the precedent of good work ethic and going the extra mile. That, it could have been any type of property owner, maybe self-storage or anything, but it just so happened that the positive and fruitful working relationship you formed brought you down this path of like, oh, there's this thing I can hyper focus on, not only geographically, but by asset type, and just dominate it. And it goes to show you don't need to do everything to dominate. If you can find the one thing that's your thing and do it really, really well, 50 million in the bank.
You got it. And honestly, it makes life a lot easier. It makes business a lot easier. So I would say, roughly in a week, we have multiple calls about the childcare industry as, as a whole, as it relates, or just clients that we haven't talked to for, let's say, 6 months, or not inactive clients that we haven't talked to for, just want to get a market update on it. So we stay very in tune with that market. And our marketing for the company does send out early education reports once or twice a year to the specific local market, what's going on here with that asset, and whether or not they're ready to transact this year, next year, 5 years from now, they know that we're the experts on it. And in this area. And we've had plenty of opportunities where, hey, will you do something? We own a couple of childcare assets in Richmond. Sorry, I don't know it. I don't know if it's a sense of laziness, but I don't want to go down to Richmond. I don't know. I don't want to have to study a new market when there's enough up here. So Richmond's like 2 hours away to kind of give perspective. So again, it's very localized. It's very specialized. And then there's verticals that we can run off of that specialization. Maybe it's the zoning on a newly vacant childcare center that might work for another asset class that the zoning permits. religious facilities, for example, being one, medical being another. So now we could dive into similar verticals, but not just typecast into the early education market.
Sure. Yeah, that's fascinating. So I do want to get into this niche a little bit more.
Yep.
I believe you are the first to come on the podcast who does specialize in early education facilities, which feels like it should be a very tiny niche. But, when you give it a second thought, you're like, there are Kumons everywhere, there are tutoring centers everywhere, there's daycares all over. It's actually pretty sizable. But also to your point, you're like, just Loudoun County. I
Yeah.
don't want to focus anywhere else.
Right.
So I would love to know, based on your understanding of the sector, granted that you're in this region particularly, why is it such a hot commodity? Why are investors so interested in it? And can you explain some of the fundamentals for our listeners?
Yeah. So from a local standpoint, uh, the Northern Virginia market is a high income market. It's also a market where the majority of the household, the heads of household, they both work. So
Mm,
they both, maybe one is an attorney and the other one is a doctor. That's over 80% of the demographic families around here. However, they want kids, but with these high incomes also equal higher tuition rates than most other areas in the country. So these schools are very lucrative because of the high tuition rates that they're achieving and also the need. So as you get into Western Fairfax and Loudoun County, Northern Prince William County, these are growing areas of families. So, average family size is four. So these high income earners, they're not going to give up their careers. They want kids, but they want their kids going to a very nice facility and they're willing to pay for it. You could take one facility and it could be within a half a mile of each other where one is, let's say, charging 30 grand a year per child, but they have uh, soccer, dance, haircut, that the kids could get there.
a
It's high
haircut.
quality education and STEM learning or Montessori schools. And then you have the place around the corner that just offers childcare. That's it. We're going to watch your kids for while you're at work. But they're going to be half the price. I will tell you that the one that's half the price is going to be at maybe 50, 60% enrolled. The one that offers, even though it's
Mm,
twice as much, is going to be 100% enrolled with a wait list. And that is
mm.
because of the parents wanting their children in that type of that and being able to afford it. So that now leads to why investors like it. Investors like it because these are typically long-term leases, 15, 20-year leases. And if you have national the national credit tenant, like so the kindergarten learning companies, the learning care group, they have, thousands of locations and these are corporately backed leases, triple net, no, absolute, no landlord responsibilities at all. So even though we're hyper focused here in terms of selling it, our buyers are coming from all over. Plenty of buyers over there on the West Coast for these types of assets. They know the Northern Virginia DC metro market for these is very popular, and so they're investing in these because it's hands off and 3% escalations, and they're owning an asset in a great, Loudoun County being the wealthiest county in the United States, Fairfax County number
Oh,
two.
wow. Yeah.
So why not invest? You're
Sure.
hands off. You may not ever even see the asset. We've had plenty of those. So
Yeah. And
yeah.
I'm curious, what is the investor profile coming into the demand pool? Is it, more on the REIT side? Is it private capital? What are you seeing in terms of
Usually private capital.
backing?
So it's 1031 investors
Okay.
that usually are, because it's so passive. I would say
Sure.
the majority of our buyers of the triple net childcare assets are 1031. However, there's a familiarity with the market as itself. Maybe they've been an operator in the past. Maybe they
Mm,
own other assets with that particular tenant across other areas of the country. So it's typically there's some knowledge of the industry,
hmm.
maybe not fully into it, usually in a 1031.
Yeah, enough to know what they're investing in. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm
And we've had
curious.
REITs approach us, but usually the cap rates that our goal for the seller clients is to get the highest price per square foot, highest, the best cap rate. Those are usually going to be your 1031 buyers other
Sure.
than the REITs.
Are there any REITs, I'm curious, that focus specifically on childcare
The Store
investments?
Capital was one,
Yeah.
EPR. There's some new ones that are kind of coming up now, but those we've talked to, worked with in the past, but they're going to be because there's a margin that they have to achieve. And
Sure.
so the cap rates that they're presenting on, we're doing much better for our client by a pretty big margin by selling to the
Yeah.
1031 investor.
They're looking a little bit maybe outside of the
Yeah.
area that you're
Yeah.
focused in.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
What they can level up and then sell to your future clients, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm curious, before we dive into some of the fun stuff with, we were talking a little bit earlier about your differences in marketing strategy and using technology.
Yeah.
What's the most common misconception that when you do have a new investor that's nascent to the childcare niche,
Hmm.
what is the most common misconception they come into looking at this property with? And why should it be really on these folks' radar going into 2026?
There's always going to be a need for it, and I believe that. I mean, just recently there was an article that came out regarding the need for more childcare and a big investment actually coming into the whole childcare market as an industry. So I think for the investor looking at the asset, what is very important is looking at the operator. I mean, I know that's a kind of across the board, who's your actual tenant, how are they back, but you want to look at companies that have the track record. What type of lease is it? Is it going to be a personally guaranteed one mom and pop shop type of thing? That's going to obviously affect the cap rate. And if you're out of state, that's going to be kind of tough. What happens if you need to replace that tenant? Now, also, one of the big things is the price per square foot and not knowing what the local market is. If you're coming, how easy is it going to be to replace that tenant if something does happen? That has been somewhat of an issue in the past when there's been price per square foot that have been inflated by, let's say, the developer or so. So, in other words, childcare developer going into a spot or an operator and asking for a ton of TI from the ownership. And the trade-off is instead of paying market rate for a childcare center in Northern Virginia or the area that we focus in is $39.89 a square foot.
Bad.
There are leases you will see around here in the 60s.
Hmm.
And the unknowing investor comes in and, oh, okay, that's fine. That's what New York prices are, let's say. Well, that's not what Loudoun County prices are. All right, they've got to that rate because of the TI that, the allowance that they got, and they just baked it into the rate. Well, what happens when if that tenant goes under? You're going to not lease that for $62 a square foot.
Yeah,
You're
so you
going to
better
get
pencil
what
it in.
market rate is. So your evaluation that you just paid $10 million for is now going to be worth $7 million overnight if you have to replace it. So I think that is a caution, and that's when dealing with somebody local who understands this market is important to that out-of-state investor.
Sure. Yeah, you got to have somebody boots on ground who can lead you on the right path if you get tempted down a little shadowy trail there.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So, speaking of, you actually said market trends, which I think plays into this next subject very nicely. Uh, I would love to know more about how Serafin uses technology. And particularly, I know that, when you are doing public speaking, you do talk about a lot of your use of technology. I think you've spoken about AI pretty
Yep.
recently. So
Yep.
I'd love to know, where your interest comes from in those topics. Obviously, AI is very
Yeah.
interest du jour. Um, but how are you thinking about it in terms of incorporating it and also choosing what to incorporate of it into your business?
Sure. So I kind of talked a little bit about time before. We all have 24 hours in a day,
Mhm.
and how to use, I've always been big on how to use every minute as efficient as I can. So when I'm looking at any technology tool, it's going to be, will this be helpful in terms of I could get more done with less time? Or is this going to be the opposite where I've got to invest more time into this technology to make it work? That's really what it boils down to. And I have to go back on that a lot myself because I'll find myself going down a rabbit hole. I'm like, this is cool, this is cool, this is cool. But yet I've just overcomplicated things for all of us, for me, my brokers, our office manager. And it's like, okay, wait, take a step back. Whole reason of doing this is to make it more efficient. So that's how I'll judge really any technology or now I will explore them all. Uh, I have mentors and coaches and all that. I've worked with the Massimo group for a while, and I know Rod's big, so I'll listen to what he says too on like what he may be implementing and things like that too, and check it out and usually adopt it if it makes sense. So it's kind of like, what need do we need to fill? Where's our gap right now? Is our gap in managing to close, or is our gap our database right now? Is our gap the forecasting of or helping us forecast what the market knowledge shows right now? Or
Yeah.
is this data complete, or as complete as can be? So that's where the technology piece comes into everything, is how can it analyze that? Maybe it could, well, it can, AI can do it exponentially faster than any human can when it comes to analyzing thousands and thousands of rows of data and property information. So that's
Yeah,
what we look at. I mean, it gives us what can give us the best leverage.
sure.
Yeah.
So, without giving up too much of the secret sauce, what is giving you more leverage that you're excited
Uh,
about?
so the proprietary info on the certain special niches that we do have.
Mm,
Childcare properties, a lot of them are not public knowledge because sometimes, now the triple net properties, yes, right? You could advertise, but sometimes an owner who has, let's say, they own the building and they own the business. They're not going to want that marketed out to the masses because there's a confidential component of that. In addition to that, if you're out all over the place and the parents see it, all that, well, they're going to be thinking of alternatives because they are thinking, uh-oh, this is going to sell and close down and become something else. Usually that's not the case. It's being sold to another operator. So
mm,
now when that sells, who has that information? The appraiser might, uh, but usually not a lot of other public sources. So now we have a database that if we're doing 80 to 85% of those transactions locally, we have that data. So now
mm.
we could actually build on that proprietary database where, if you have let's say a broker coming from out of state that's looking into that market, oh, I see that the average price per square foot is $25 a square foot. Well, what are you
They're
looking at?
missing half
You're
the
looking at public
transactions.
data. You actually don't know about this,
Mm,
and that traded. So that gives us, I think, the leverage or the benefit over,
sure.
you know, a lot of over the competition, honestly.
Yeah, having your own data is your moat in
Hmm.
the age of data training what AI can do. And
Right.
yeah, very, very important to take care of it. So you mentioned proprietary, you also mentioned confidentiality.
Hmm.
Something I've been thinking a lot about is just how dangerous it is that there are so many folks, especially in this industry, where there's financial information being tossed around, there's personal information being tossed around, how important data security is. So, how are you thinking about keeping this information secure as you build these systems on top of your proprietary data?
Hmm.
Especially because children are involved with
Right.
this particular niche.
Yeah. So that's our own database, and I mean we're very careful. Again, staying in tune with the market, listening to the experts. I mean, recently I met with a local AI expert who we were talking about just this, the security and things like that. And with certain AI software and platforms, your data is not necessarily secure. It's not your own. I mean, it's always learning and things like that. So it's understanding which platforms actually do you have the secure data in. And when we're talking like our proprietary database, yeah, there's a lot of AI involved, but it's also to the old school of, using Google Workspace and Sheets and all that. That is only shared within our internal team. That's not on a public internet platform or anything like that. And then if we're using Gemini, let's say, and we have that paid account with Gemini Workspace for Workspace does not publicly, it's not publicly open to your data. Like let's say ChatGPT, regardless of the paid platform or not, ChatGPT is an open platform. Certain ones are not, especially if you're working with, I think Copilot is another one. So if you have Copilot from the Microsoft world, that could be private to you. They're not sharing your data. Your data is not public. So it is definitely being careful. And in the early days, I was very sensitive to what am I putting in. I use all of them for different reasons, but what am I putting in this platform that maybe I should not be putting in this platform?
Yeah, it's very, very important, especially if your fiduciary duty is to your clients and protecting their information.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so a lot of the due diligence is beholden on, I think, the
Hmm.
brokerage to understand what tools they're adding to their toolkit and how they work and what they should be aware of when it comes to that kind of sensitivities.
Yep.
So, on more of the research side, you mentioned you're building this on top of your proprietary data. What other things are you complementing that library with? And, I think often about just how much more ubiquitous data is these days. As much as we want to build our moats, technology is making things more and more accessible, evening the playing field for a lot of folks. So, how do you think about leveraging all that data as it becomes more available to Serafin's best advantage?
Yep. So, because we have some fine-tuned niche, it is definitely the organization of that data as well. I mean, we don't track all 22,730 commercial properties in our market. That's a lot. That gets overwhelming. So, but we do track the different niches that we're in, and so it's understanding historical. Over the last 10 years, what's what does the market data look like, and based maybe we can compare it to other industry topic. For example, how does the interest rate or the treasury rate affect the amount of sales? So if we have that data, which is very easily public data, and we are now relating that to how many sales were in a given year, what was the price per square foot? Now maybe it helps us build a forecast, and somewhat of an accurate forecast. It's not exact, of what are the trigger points on where a particular asset is going to go. One example, prior to COVID, there was 192 licensed commercial early education centers in Loudoun County. Fast forward after COVID in like 2023, there was 171. Now you'd expect some drop, right? As of very recent, within the last week or so, last time I kind of checked in, I check on these things, there's 119. So that's 192 to 119. Why is that? So it's our job to know what the reason is, what is happening with that particular, and what's causing it, to educate our clients or potential clients on what is going on. Now, it was 113, so it is slightly growing right now. And the reason was there was a lot of consolidation of a lot of the bigger firms who grew really, really big and national companies. Now they're consolidating their centers. Maybe they're doing larger centers. They're consolidating 2 into 1 because they're doing a range of age groups and things. But that is the market data that we study and that we're going to actually look back into. So the historical trend and then being able to forecast where is this actually going. AI does help with that to an extent, but it's also boots on the ground, like you had said.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious, as AI and these tools become more ubiquitous, what do you think the brokerage process looks like in, let's say, 2030 with these tools all available?
So technology is going to get better and better and better and better, and I mean, every day the AI comes out with something different and it just blows my mind. But there's certain aspects of commercial real estate brokerage that can't be replaced, and that has to do with the negotiation. I mean, it is very tough, if you're negotiating a large deal, to have a chatbot do that for you. That goes into the psychology of human beings. Being able to look somebody in the face or sit down face to face and is much more valuable than what an AI says that you should study and negotiate on or things like that. Yeah, it's very valuable knowing all the data points, but you can't. I know everybody always says there's, commercial real estate's not emotional. Well, it is, because people are emotional. You can't help it. People are emotional, and that's dealing with the psychology. What one person's motivation may be is completely different than the motivation of the next person or the other person. Finding out what those motivation and trigger points are, there's no way an AI could do, at least not yet. I don't know, by 2030 maybe, but the only way to do that is actually a relationship that you have with that other person. That's really how you're going to get the understanding, how you're going to be able to solve the problem the best. And yes, AI can help me understand a 1,000-page zoning ordinance for a county very easily. That's phenomenal. But can that relate to a specific property or person and what they want to do? Well, not really, not yet. So,
yeah, fantastic words of advice. I just was at a book swap over the weekend and I grabbed, I think it's called Leave Nothing on the Table.
okay.
It's an FBI hostage negotiator on negotiation. I'm very
Okay.
excited to read it.
Gotcha. Who
So,
is that by? Do you remember who that's by? Because I may
oh
have
gosh,
read
I'll
that
look it
one.
up after we're done
Okay.
recording and I'll pass it. I'll put it in the show notes too for the
All right,
listeners
cool.
because
Yeah.
I love that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's a fantastic place to kind of leave this conversation. Before I let you go, a couple rapid fire questions I want to shoot at you if you're
Yep.
ready.
Yep. I'm
Really
ready.
quick, like fast
Yep.
answers for this.
Yep.
So, if you were handed 50 million today and you had to invest it before the end of today in real estate, where would you park that capital and what asset type and why?
Okay. 25 million goes to triple net stabilized property, local early education center. The other 25 million goes into value add. So maybe a vacant childcare center or vacant building that could convert to one, knowing the rents. That's going to be based upon my offer. So half stabilized, half a little risky with value add, all local.
Totally reasonable. That sounds
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Well, if you're forming another LLC, let me know. I might have to make
Right.
a decision.
Yeah. Yep.
What's the worst advice you've been given about being successful in brokerage?
Say yes to everything. Uh, no is a very powerful and a very selfless word. The more that you say no to, the more that you can say yes. And I know everybody's heard that before, but it is very, very true. You don't have to be a jack of all trades. You can specialize and say no to the things that you just don't know about.
Absolutely. And finally, what's one contrarian belief or hot take that you have about the commercial real estate industry today?
I would say, everybody always focuses on cap rates. When they're looking at investment, cap rates definitely don't tell the whole story. There's a lot more to it. There's a lot more studying. And one more thing I will add to that is from the broker standpoint, a lot of people maybe just think that brokers just post listings. There is a lot underground. That posting listings and marketing is the tip of the iceberg. The larger chunk is all underwater. It's what we do on a day-to-day basis.
Hear, hear.
Yep.
I took a 10-week class on the brokerage process this summer, and
Nice.
it was intense.
Yeah.
Y'all work very, very hard and earn your dang commission. So
Right.
I
Well, thank you. Yeah, we'll have to
definitely
talk
agree with
about
that.
that course more. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. We'll
Yeah.
chat offline.
Yeah.
But yeah, Joe, this has been so much fun. I really appreciate you spending the time with us today. Where can our listeners get in touch with you if they want to connect? Email, social media?
Yep.
Let them
So
have it.
social media all over LinkedIn. We have a company page. I have a personal page. Email info@serafinre.com. I'll even leave our phone number here, our office number, 703-261-4809. Web is serafinre.com.
I love it. Brokers
Yep.
always leave their numbers. I love it.
Yeah.
It makes me so
Yeah.
happy.
Right.
Oh, man. Well, thank you again. And
Yeah.
thanks everyone who tuned in today. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't miss the next one. And let us know what you thought. Leave us a comment, review, rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. You can check out our full library of episodes at crexi.com/podcast, or check out our YouTube channel for video recordings of each episode. Take care and be sure to tune in next time.